The upper world. In one of my dreams, I set up my mind to understand what the world would look like if we fought the egregores and somehow removed the artificial intelligence that we inherited from our neighbors, a super egregore. The world was brighter than ours. All objects radiated more magnetic fields than I was used to. Where am I? A forest, a field of grasses, the murmur of a stream in the bushes, and good energy flows going up from the trees. Perhaps this is not right place. I just got into the upper world. Beautiful place, but not the same. I was about to leave when suddenly I saw a huge white machine behind the trees. It was probably a skyscraper, but for some reason it was moving. Intrigued, I flew to have a look. It really was a huge building and it was moving on a rail. The rail was not fixed in the ground, but hung above it. When I tried to get close to the rail and see how everything works, I was thrown back by a powerful magnetic field. Further, between the device with the rail and the building, you could see a substrate of black stone and white sand. There the radiation was lost. And then, in fact, I looked at the floors and passages of the building. This was an ordinary boarding school. Students had to stay there for most of the year. They were engaged not according to the schedule, but each in their own mode. When the school passed through the living area of the student, he had the right to get to the ground, and then, when the school returned, to climb on board. He could leave school no more than twice a year. They went home for 2 months, and then went through a rehabilitation course in special magnetic fields. Since I was very blinded when I tried to watch the rehabilitation process, at the moment when these magnetic fields were turned on, I assumed that a transcendental energy was being pumped in, corresponding to the energy of the spine. Another discovery was that almost all the students saw me as a shape, but did not attach much importance to it. Some of them could hear me, and I took advantage of that fact. After asking a few questions, I found out that they have been in school for about 5 years. Each student occupies one living space, a small room with a kitchen, bathroom and toilet. Cooking was not the responsibility of the children, but it was welcome. They went to this school at the age of 9 and graduated at the age of 14. Then it was possible to continue studying at a higher educational institution, living in the same school, in own room. Students got up in the morning and went to special buildings, where they listened to video lectures, performing certain tasks, and occasionally asking something from the teacher who was in the classroom. Noticing that a young teacher was looking at me, I asked why such difficulties and why the school travels around the world. I was told that this is done in order to knock down the tentacles of the egregore, which has not yet penetrated the energy system. The problem with this world is that you can't stay in one place for more than an hour. All the egregores here have already been destroyed. They were sucked out by the super egregore, continuing to live on its own. People have been quietly destroying it with some installations for 300 years, but so far they have managed only half through. People were in stationary buildings where the radiation protecting them was less, and children were in schools like this. There were also preschool institutions like our kindergartens, but there was only daytime education welcomed, and children were taken home in the evenings. In addition to anti-gravity, there were many other technical devices in this world that were not available in our world. Petrol and electric motors did not exist for a long time. People stopped inserting chips into their brains about 200 years ago. The chip itself had low radiation with all the consequences that followed, and it was not safe to implant it. People here also grew food in a different way. In this world, there were powerful energy installations, and plants and animals were filled with high energy, getting everything they needed at the growth stage. There were no planes here either, just rails like the ones I'd seen at the school, and spaceships. Previously, people arranged sightseeing tours on the floating islands, but these trips had to be abandoned because of the hostile egregore that still lived in this world. In addition, there were areas with low gravity, from where cargo spacecraft could launch. They started the revival of Eden or Ender. It sounds different in different languages. This is a bright astral reality, where people went more and more often. No, it was not a departure from reality, only its addition and expansion. Many thousands years ago, in this way people extended their lives. How long can our physical body live? 100 years, 200? And our minds can last almost 1,000 years until they age, and then they need to be rebooted. When the radiation on Earth increased and closed the contour, it became possible to stay in the astral plane for as long as you want. People partially moved their minds to the astral plane. This could not but affect culture and life in general. Entertainment on Earth has become much less. Why would they, if all the most unthinkable things can be organized at the lowest cost in Ender? There were even special people who were engaged in such entertainment events they could invent reality. Scientists also conducted some experiments in the astral plane, and with the least cost, but with greater efficiency. Training with bright experiments has passed partly to the astral plane. All this was funded by the state. What has existed in this reality? New technologies have helped people spread out evenly around the world. They received many advantages: a clean environment, good food, new healthcare, sports for health and energy classes, training for all segments of the population, a low average income. Income surprisingly almost equaled. People learned about rebirth. No one wanted to be born into a poor, socially unprotected family. Many have old memories of past lives. But there was still one problem: there was still the threat in the form of egregore, which everyone remembered very well. The population has fallen dramatically. After the child went to school, family members could live on different continents for years. They met at night in Eden, Ender, the astral plane. In the morning the child would wake up in his school. His mother could on one continent to breed a new variety of pine for the far north, and dad to live, for example, in Australia and work as an archaeologist. Such a family met in person very rarely, only when the child came home from school, and then again went on their own business. Of course, there were also adherents of old family relationships. They fell asleep in the same house, and in Eden they dispersed to different places according to their interests. Such families believed that the energy flows of the spouses should intersect all night. There were also families of scientists who slept in the same bed to better support the images of experiments together. There was one thing in this world that was very expensive. As now we save for retirement, so in this world we saved for a second life. Proper burial was very expensive, and it was necessary for the energy to flow through the physical body, and for the soul to be able to remain for hundreds of years in Eden or Ender, preserving the astral body. Priority was given to scientists and visionaries. But there were also social benefits to compensate for lost lives. If an accident occurred and a person lost his life, he was buried according to all the rules, so that he could stay in Ender as long as possible. How similar this world is to the one we lost. My stomach lurched. It was time to leave. Returning to my world, I felt for the first time that I was sinking into heavy currents. Since when did our world become hard for me? Truly, everything is known in comparison. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. All have a good mood and bye.